Godfrey Reggio's Koyaanisqatsi is admittedly a film I should have watched sooner, yet only recently saw for the first time. I certainly feel a connection and can see many similarities between this film and my own work, and as such there are plenty of sequences to contemplate and analyze, and even more to simply enjoy. Many of the transitions felt natural and logical, almost expected, yet not in a negative way. Going from the scenes of decaying housing projects to footage of their demolition was what was in the back of my mind just before it was on screen. Yet, throughout the film there was one sequence that caught me off guard. The sequence loosely begins with a telephoto shot of an older man advertising for sightseeing tours, the words "bus and boat, sightseeing" plastered across the front of a captain's hat, as the crowd around him weaves in and out. He doesn't see the camera, and he exists almost passively in the active crowd around him. It continues to a similar shot of a younger man who is more stylishly dressed, and the camera slowly zooms in, yet this time the man is aware of the camera and looks directly at it, only glancing away momentarily. The sequence continues to alternate between young and old, passive and active, all within the context of an urban bustle and constant flow of moving people. It all feels as if each shot is just a couple steps away and a turn from the last one, building a context which has no real identity, yet is conceptually and aesthetically precise, a technique which is present throughout the film. The sequence shifts, a much more static shot, a scene of a slumped-over man being lifted into a stretcher. Things move in slow motion as the man is awkwardly heaved off the ground by several police officers. We then see a woman, again, much younger, framed by the window of a car as the camera looks in. She watches something for a moment, then rolls out the window, ending the sequence. My initial reaction to the sequence, particularly the last two shots, was a sense of anger, almost hatred, directed at the woman in the car. It caught me off guard because while the film as a whole was creating a narrative, this sequence was something else. The larger narrative of the film is one of balance, presented to the viewer through the contrasts of life, which are constructed and fabricated through editing of the film. But this sequence feels like a particular moment in time, a reality. It pulls you from passively viewing into this reality to become the observer of this scene as a man is lifted from the streets and a woman looks on. You see the man, and you know he is dead or dying as he is put onto the stretcher to be taken away. You see the woman in the car as she rolls up her window, her expression of distaste and apathy, surrounded by black leather and shiny chrome trim, and you hate her for watching the world suffer and simply being indifferent. The emotion created through this sequence can partially be attributed to the Kuleshov effect, but through significantly more subtlety than classic examples. What makes this sequence use of the Kuleshov effect so powerful is due to several distinct elements. Firstly, the context established by the montage of urban crowds creates a hypothetical, unified location, much like the rest of the film. Each shot does not make an effort to appear to be in the same place, but they hold enough similarities to create the illusion of unity, allowing any differences to fade into the background. This allows the viewer to assume interaction between each shot, regardless of inconsistencies, and create a narrative surrounding the last two shots of the sequence. Secondly, the shot of the man being lifted onto the stretcher is from a low angle, lower than head height, yet not too close to the ground. This matches the height at which we see the woman looking from the car, and this allows the viewer to assume that the first shot is from her perspective, connecting the two scenes. It's a minor detail, and there are plenty of differences that would say that the shots aren't connected, but confirmation bias allows the association to work. Lastly, the shot of the man being lifted onto the stretcher is a narrative in and of its own. This is important because the slow, static nature of the shot allows the viewer to contemplate the shot more than the others before it, and to start asking questions about the situation. Why is there a stretcher? Why is the man slumped over? Why are there police officers? Is he dead? In asking these questions, the viewer forms an idea of what is happening in the scene, and then applies all those ideas to the next shot of the woman in the car. The contextual location has been established, and the viewer sees the expression of the woman as being smug, self-satisfied, and sees her rolling up the window as a sign of distaste and apathy towards what the viewer assumes is the suffering of the man. Despite the expression of the woman being fairly neutral, the combined effect of implied emotion is strong. The viewer feels anger towards the woman, hatred in the face of her privilege and apathy, her ability to simply observe and turn away. In a film like Koyaanisqatsi, where the beginning and end of a narrative is as much up to the viewer as it is to the director, it may be hard to defend an argument of the meaning of a particular sequence, yet I think to some extent that is the point of the film as a whole. While another viewer might not see the exact same meaning in a sequence that I do, they will likely see a strong and specific meaning in a different sequence that strikes them just as powerfully. In a experimental, almost cinema pure film, the Kuleshov effect has an interesting consequence. Instead of being used to directly further a specific plot or enhance a linear narrative, it allows the viewer to make associations and find implied meaning, even where it might not have originally been intended. The aesthetic style of the film removes the normal consistency and continuity of narrative film, and instead allows many of the small details to fade into the background, feeding the confirmation bias-prone part of our minds. Demonstrating the power of assumed meaning, in his review of Koyaanisqatsi, the sequel and conceptual continuation to Koyaanisqatsi, Mark Bourne said that Godfrey Reggio, the director, seeks to squeeze our consciousness into his point of view through a movie that tries to tell us what to think. He's writing this about a film with no dialogue, just music and moving images. It's certainly an ironic consequence that a film that presents so little direct meaning acts as the perfect blank canvas for our minds to find tiny little details and assume great intention. Yet it also demonstrates the immense power of association of images and the ability they have to convey meaning and emotion.